start with our guest speakers introducing themselves. If there's anything you guys would like to ask anyone, just raise your hand and mention the question or the name and who you're asking. Okay? So you guys are good to go. Tell us a little bit about yourselves.
I like coffee and beer.
In which order?
Attention.
In about that order. So my name is John Kern. I'm a long-time practitioner of software, but not trained in software. So I'm trained in aerospace engineering, and software is just a tool. So I have a lot of very strong opinions about software engineering. They're not very good, but they're strong.
Hello again. My name is Anna. I'm a head of product at Ocado Technology based in the UK. I'm in the product space, but I used to be a software developer before, and I also have some strong opinions. Now, talking about Agile, our company is very Agile, so some opinions and some experience there as well.
Yeah, and I'm Henrik Esser. I'm working with a company called Ericsson, a giant telecommunications company. And I also have a strong background in software development, but then in a short while I was going into a management career, systems and technology management, project offices, operations. And nowadays I'm using my 24 years of experience in this company as a sort of in-house consultant. Official title is Manager Special Projects. Aha. So I've reached this, I'm at the moment running a 15,000 people transformation program, which is like, I'm a mix of scared and in awe of this whole thing. And I had a lot of very strong opinions until now. Now I have reached a state where I know that I don't know anything, and I'm happy to be convinced about anything.
Thank you for that. So my first question goes out to Anna. How many Scrum teams have you managed at once?
Could I get some context to this question? What do you mean at once? We have more than 1,000 people in technology alone. There are plenty of Scrum teams there, so we are dividing ourselves to some departments. But like in my stream, in my big department, we have about 30 different teams across different countries, 4 different locations, a lot of Scrum teams.
Tell us a couple of the challenges you face.
My biggest headache is the location. If I could change a thing, I would have everyone in the same country, in the same office. Then the location, the distance is actually making everything much more difficult. It's not just the language, it's not just the distance, but even the fact that you can't bump to each other in the kitchen and have a random conversation and exchange what we do and how we do and all these cool things, that's actually one of the biggest challenges.
Great, thank you. And John, next question is for you. When would you use waterfall over Scrum?
Wow, I use waterfall every day.
He rocks this one.
And if you're doing, I'm going to give away some of my punchlines at the talk, but if you're doing Agile, the way that I do Agile, I am doing waterfall every day, so is the team. The only thing that was wrong with waterfall when I was first learning about it, accidentally through doing Defense Department gigantic projects, which led me to Agile, is waterfall is just silly if you're doing 6 months of use cases or requirements and then handing that giant river raft full of documents over to the next team. So speaking of not being in the same location, imagine not even being the same people and not even remotely having the same conversation. So it's odd to even juxtapose Scrum and waterfall in the same conversation, because for me, Scrum's just a project management technique. Don't really care if what you're building with it. It's not software oriented. And that's another punchline, that Scrum doesn't mean you're Agile. Sorry.
And describe to us what happens in the sprint planning meeting.
In the sprint planning meeting, what happens? You're asking the wrong person now.
I'm asking the wrong. Anyone want to help out here? Jump in.
You want to?
I mean, my perspective is the perspective of a leader driving an agile transformation. So we have been trying sprint planning on a leadership team level, which totally failed because this is not the right practice or was not the appropriate practice. So for us, a Kanban kind of approach was more suitable. But otherwise, yeah, maybe one of you has a good idea.
I think Anna wants to say something there, yeah.
Yeah, I used to be a product owner and I worked with a few Scrum teams, and Scrum was something that we were practicing. And I noticed this with other teams as well, everyone somehow started moving to Kanban, and I was wondering why is that? And it turns out that at the end of the sprint, everyone becomes a little bit stressful. It was stressful because people either ran out of work or they knew they weren't going to finish, so they started gaming the system, so leaving something unfinished just to say, oh, we finished that, we get these 3 points or whatever. So it was more like gaming the system than actually focusing on what's the value, and most of our teams moved to Kanban.
Mm-hmm. Now let's get our audience involved. We have some questions here.
Hi, I'm Nikos. I want to ask John about his area of expertise, let's say. I understand that being agile is kind of be able to turn your organization towards the highest value in the market. But in your sector, in aerospace, I guess, could be different, right? I mean, you don't have a market exactly. You have to design and plan things carefully, also in the medical sector, I guess. So do you see where is the line of using agile practices in this area? I mean, where's the limit? What do you gain from that?
That's one of the most important aspects of Agile. It's a state of mind and it's contextual. I mean, you're exactly right that I sure hope that somebody who's designing a website for football statistics is applying a very different process than someone that is building a system that could kill somebody if they do a really bad job. A cyberknife surgery thing that somehow man-machine makes cuts in people's brains. I'm pretty sure that better be designed a lot differently than a lot of software that I've seen. So that's the whole point. Was the type of rigor that I encountered in my Defense Department type work was just stupid for the work we were doing, and even more ridiculous to be foisted on simpler problems. So one size doesn't fit all. That's the biggest thing.
Thank you.
Does anyone else want to ask a question to our panel discussion? No?
Wake up. Hi, and thank you for being here. My question is, again to John, about, on the cross here. You didn't say anything about Agile manifesto, so I would ask something about it, because I'm wondering all these years that I'm dealing with Agile and software, and now that Agile is maybe, from my point of view, in a hype or whatever, how these Agile manifesto values are still valid and are used from the teams you are engaged or you get involved somehow.
Yeah, I still think those 4 simple bullets will stand the test of time. And the real point behind those is we were slightly ambiguous. There's the left and right. That's actually rather clever because it gives us wiggle room. We didn't specify a huge process. And in my talk following this, I will describe some of the background that led me to those 4 bullets. Because I still think that and that's part of what I want to resuscitate Agile. I was super excited to, Yanni even gave in the beginning just this 10 minutes remark or 5 minutes remark gave me a feel that, and many of the speakers that I've seen to date have given me a feel that Agile Greece, the folks that are here are on the precipice of trying to do Agile right. And I think when you were describing Agile, the term that I would use, you could say it's crossed the chasm in terms of now it's in the, not the early adopters, but now it's in probably late stage adopters, maybe laggards. It's jumped the shark, another phrase that you could use to say that Agile in name only is really prevalent and people don't understand the actual principles and what was going through our minds at that point in the history of software development that led us to this reaction of lightweight process versus heavyweight. And I think it's critical that we restore the understanding of what Agile, of the Agile manifesto means, so that people can't just say we're doing Agile and it's complete bull, bleep, it's complete crap, because they don't get it. So I think that's, I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Okay, I have a question for all three speakers. What type of metrics or reports have you used?
Oh, all sorts of it. A throughput, cycle time, and all these good things. But we can't. I'll tell you the conclusion. Actually, we need to stop looking at them in isolation, because we might be going perfectly fast, perfectly agile in the wrong direction. So what we also need to include in this is business KPIs. So are we satisfying our customers? Is there a demand? Not only how fast are we going? So yeah, we used all sorts of metrics. It's just my point is, do not blindly follow these numbers, but understand why are you doing these things.
Yeah, we have also used all sorts of metrics. For us, the whole metrics discussion started actually with a philosophical discussion, and that was who owns these metrics. Should this be management? I mean, who's learning from the data and from the measurements? And then understanding that data doesn't mean we have a measurement, and a measurement doesn't mean we have information. So who owns the thing? And for us, it was clear that, first of all, we once said we measure our performance, not our people. That was one of those foundations we put in there. And we said that teams should own their own KPIs and their own data. And as an example, who owns, for example, the burn down velocity? Yeah, that's the team. And the management should just get the fingers out of this, because this is a metric that is owned by the team, so the team can improve and learn and so on. While management maybe has needs other feedback loops and other data to learn. And for that, for example, we sometimes use things like feature lead times and so on, but not to say, hey, you haven't delivered on time, but in order to say, okay, our customer has been asking us, can we deliver at a certain point in time? We made a prediction because we needed to say something to our customer, and we want to become better in predicting, so we need this feedback loop. Those are just two examples.
Anna?
Can I just quickly add to this? Because we focus a lot about team velocity, like team metrics. But I'd like to state something that is super important, that it's actually the organization as a whole which is important. The flow of the whole organization, how quickly we deliver something for the end customer as a whole, not as how quickly every team is going. So business agility has nothing to do with agile teams. There is a great talk on YouTube by Klaus Leopold. Highly recommend that. He explains that in more detail. But basically, don't forget to look as a whole system, not just at the teams.
Well, we measure lines of code and pay the programmers for that. Actually, we pay the programmers for the number of bugs they fix. No. Okay. So I've changed over the past couple of years, changed my focus a lot on everything that we build. I try to do it for an expected outcome. So if I build some feature or make some improvement, what am I doing that for? Am I doing it to attract new customers? Am I doing it to get people to use this feature? So something else that I embed in our systems is a self-feature usage tracking, so that when we add a feature, we have some simple internal API calls that log the feature and log the usage. And so I can verify if it's being used. Maybe it was because I didn't advertise it enough on the intercom, little bubbles, or maybe it just sucks. It's a horrible feature. It was a bad idea. Only one person wanted it. So I tend to measure things all against what outcome were we looking for as a business decision. Why did we hypothesize that we should do this feature, and then measure the outcome. So that's really the most thing. But then I do like those cool charts. It's fun to look at how crappy we are at cycle time. And it's fun to look at over the past year, the actual productivity has gone down a little bit. And we look at that as a team. And they go, why is that? Is it because one of our key guys left and we're just lower quality because of him, we run slower? Why is that? So I try to measure a lot of things and bring it to the team and try to figure it out.
So John, is it okay when someone wants to change a requirement? How do you handle that?
Oh, you only get one shot at asking for what you want. So there's no, yeah. I've actually been working consulting with a company who the developers acted really strange. Like, why are you behaving this way? And I come to find out, because all the other projects, we were only given one shot at building it and putting it out there, and then we never touched it again. So we have to, because they were packing everything into features, like way overblowing and beyond what I was trying to put in front of them. So to me, again, software is a hypothesis. So sometimes I'll build a feature super simple. Like I put a document library in this pump selecting tool thing, and it was a flat list. Now everybody who's ever been to a library is pretty sure there's probably organization more than a single list of books. And of course I knew that, but I didn't build it. And I waited until the customer actually said, hey, do you think we could have sections? Oh, yeah, what a brilliant idea. I think I'll put sections in there and we can name categories of, brochures and range charts and specifications. And so, yes, you can ask for change, please. I love it when the customer leads to where I'd like to go and I get feedback from them.
Thank you. So we know Anna's opinion if she would recommend automated testing for your project. From your own presentation, we understood a lot on that. I would like the gentleman's opinion on testing automated.
Test automation is one of the key focus areas in our company, at least, because the question is really how can anything that can be automated and what frees up human brains from doing repetitive work, we should automate. And in that sense, we are looking into automating as much as we can. There is people even looking into things like AI now to help us with the testing because, of course, the number of logs that you get that you need to analyze is overwhelming and so on. So it's a super important thing going forward. And not only the automation of the test, but the automation of the whole delivery pipeline of the software from our developers via the automated test out to the customer even.
And John?
Yeah, it's certainly hard to disagree with the kinds of things we can do today in the software landscape for testing. Visual systems especially have gotten so much easier that it's inexcusable to not have automated test coverage. Given what I had, maybe not Anna because she's too young, but I'm sure what Henrik and I could make your eyes bleed to talk to you about ways that we tested things in the past. And so now, I don't know if you've ever used Cucumber, but that was a big epiphany for me. That was the first time I've ever had a tool to allow automated tests actually interact with the real system instead of some dopey, click tracker or something like that for like a web app type testing. So for me, the automation is key because, as Henrik said, if you're doing something manual over and over again and it's of kind of mediocre value and it's really tedious, I call that tediocracy. It's a new word.
Thank you. We have a question here from Yanni.
So I would like to ask John, because we know that you are one of the co-authors of Manifesto, of the Agile Manifesto. If you have to share with us a funny story or how you gathered, or if there were any differences in the opinions on what you wrote down, or if you have thought to gather again to change some things. So if you have something to share with us regarding how the Agile Manifesto was produced or something like this, I think
That would be a great talk at a bar. But just in short, yeah, most of the things we sort of argued about are in the 12 principles. You know, they were like, oh, it's got to be 2 weeks. No, it's got to be a month. Like, who cares? Got to be a day. So there were some things that we debated heavily about, but then other things we were able to, I think partly because we're folks who may be pretty good at abstracting and raising the essence of a problem. So in my mind, the manifesto got to the essence of human behavior in terms of software development. Much like, you know, the Greeks created democracy, but the United States like refined it, refactored it into something usable, and not mob rule. So I like to think that the Declaration of Independence got to the essence of human behavior as far as the government of men, you know, and the flaws. And I think the same thing with the software world, so wouldn't change a thing.
Thank you. Another question for John. So in a, let's say, high importance project like life and death, how do you decide when testing is enough? How much testing is enough?
Depends how much it hurts. Well, that's a great question. So part of the philosophy of good architecture, good design is actually prevention and fail-safe. So, you know, you don't have a necessarily fail-safe web app, but when you are designing, obviously, mission-critical systems for, you know, like we had a centrifuge that we put fighter pilots, like Top Gun, flat spins. The thing could do 15 Gs, which would, you know, well, actually somebody went on it and could do 40 Gs, which would, of course, normally kill you, but he was in a water suit. So things like that, instead of trying to pretend you could test your way to perfection, you make sure systems fail safely, because you'll never, as AI or not, right, you'll never ever get to perfection. So that's part of the beauty of still requiring humans to build software and build systems, is it is a very systems engineering approach. It's a whole systems, as Anna was saying, and understanding kind of the areas that can affect that particular decision making the most. You just have to, you get things down to a level of acceptable risk. It's about as good as you can get. And where acceptable is radically different for different systems.
Just an example maybe of this. I went to Spain recently, went to a random restaurant, got a menu completely in Spanish. I have no clue what I'm ordering, right? I'm coming here, I can see a menu in a restaurant which is full of spelling mistakes in English words, but I know what I get, right? So I think it's about the balance, not really testing to a perfection to end up with a perfect menu. As a customer, I want to have an idea what I'm getting. So maybe it's all about the balance. If we are not going to kill people, maybe not perfect is good enough to go live and test with real customers.
And one more. So let's say maybe in your experience there was a situation where something failed badly. For example, like SpaceX blew up. How is the testing team handling that?
So yeah, my cruise missile engine testing experience, one of 2 prototypes exploded on, you know, while I was testing it. And then it happened again on another one. Again, it wasn't me, but yeah, so that leads to, in the world of engineering, you often do a root cause analysis, failure modes, and there's all kinds of things that probably don't apply too much to the typical software projects that most of us are doing. But the key is to be able to, even if you have software failures that are spectacular, and I've had a few, the best you can do is be agile enough to quickly respond, quickly, like I have feature toggles. I do all kinds of things to put in place, ways to turn things on and off. If it, like a flight instructor of mine once told me about what to do when you're landing if your engine cuts out and it's nighttime. And so what do you do? So I explained what I would do. He goes, that's cool. And then he said, the other thing I would add is when you're near the ground, turn the lights on. If you don't like what you see, turn them back off. And that's kind of like sometimes I've seen architecture designs that are like, oh, make it go away. And so I don't know. You still have to use your judgment.
And one last question. This question goes out to everybody, both our panel and our awesome crowd. How often do you do stand-ups? Daily, weekly? With your team, what works better and why?
Daily.
Absolutely daily.
Daily.
It depends. Our teams do stand-ups daily, but on the portfolio level, we meet weekly because things don't go so quickly. So it depends on the level.
And John?
Daily.
Daily. Awesome.
It's not a question, it's the answer. Daily, but we don't stand. I hate standing.
I worked with one team once. They were having stand-ups twice a day because they thought the feedback loop is really, really quick. So if you are stuck with something, you don't have to wait 24 hours. And they kept stand-ups really, really short because of that.
So I have one funny story. Being in the cruise missile engine testing, being at this Naval Air Propulsion Center, as a young engineer, it was an honor to finally be invited to the daily stand-up at the facility. I said, ooh, this is really awesome. Because that's where you plan what you're doing, what projects are running, the test cell mechanics. Sometimes we run 3 shifts. Engineers get to work all 3 shifts, but the other folks don't. So, first day I go in there and see people's behavior, and then by about the 10th or, I don't know, maybe 20th time I went, I was like, wow, those ways to learn how to dance when they put footsteps on the floor, I swear you could have put footsteps on the floor with people's names, and I realized, wow, this is just a stupid ceremony that is very little value, and I stopped going. So daily stand-ups aren't always that good if you're just doing stupid things.
Awesome. Thank you very much. A big round of applause to all our 3 guest speakers.